Okay, guys, welcome back to a holiday edition of Live Wire, the program where we take your questions from the chat. I'm your host, Jared Moore, as usual, and if you guys have a question, pop it in the chat. We've already got some questions in there. We're going to get to them after our little introduction thing. On today's program, we have Brittany Harlow. She is director and lead journalist for the Verified News Network. And Brittany, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So I guess to start off with, before we get into these paid training opportunities, tell us about Verified News Network. What is it? What's the philosophy behind it?
So, Verified News Network is a social news media network that was founded by me and my husband, Kelly Tidwell, a little over 5 years ago. I come from a traditional background of working in radio and television, and it's just not exactly what I thought I would be getting into when I went to school for journalism and got
Mm,
out into the field. And so I definitely wanted to be more of a community service and really be working with our community members directly and representing them and giving them what they needed. And so I met Kelly while I was the weekend anchor at KXII down in Sherman, Texas. And we had a lot of discussions that eventually decided to launch our own platform
mm-hmm.
and to give journalists like me a way to tell stories the way that we believe that they should be told, as well as give other people an opportunity to be more of an active participant in the news ecosystem. So that's how we came up with the idea of a social news media. And so, what that is, it's essentially a social media that was developed exclusively for verified news and information. And everything posted there is all across the board held to the same journalistic standard. And again, it really just gives everybody more of an active role and opportunity to be part of the news process.
Yeah, and I should mention to the audience out there, Kelly Tidwell, who's your husband, he is also a Creek citizen and he is Cherokee ancestry as well. And I wanted to mention this. You guys are Muskogee Creek Nation CESO certified, is that right?
Yeah, CISO. That's correct. Yep.
So I think you guys might be the only independent journalistic agency that is CISO certified, which is amazing. Which mean, and for you guys that may not know the acronym, it's Contracting and Employment Support. It's a support program that the tribe has, and also allows the tribe to contract with native-owned businesses. So that is really awesome. For the social network part of Verified News Network, is how does that work? You guys have a thing where people can go create a profile, or so it's kind of like a mesh of a social network and a news platform. Is that the idea?
Yeah. So the VNN app, and not even, I guess it's like the digital experience, because what it is, it's a progressive web app. And so it is a website that functions as an app. You don't have to
Mm,
go to the Apple Store or Android and like download it and have a bunch of space taken up on your computer and constantly update it.
mm-hmm,
That's all done on the back end. You can save it to your home screen, and it has about like the same 95% functionality as an app.
mm-hmm.
But it really is just a fancy, complex website. So for the user, or as we call them, collaborators, you just go to app.verifiednews.network and you can find the link all over our website. Um, and you're able to create a collaborator account, which is free. We have 5 different categories that people can classify themselves as. Journalists like me, we have affiliates, of which Mvskoke Media is one.
Mm-hmm.
Also, experts in their field, officials such as like local municipalities or police departments that designate themselves and are verified officials. And then we have a citizen category, which is essentially everybody else. And so anyone who creates an account is able to upload stories and comment on stories and and be part of our community flagging system,
Mm-hmm.
which helps make sure that all of the content that we're publishing together is up to snuff. But you don't necessarily need an account to go to our website and our app and read our news. We have no paywall or anything like that. All of our
Mm-hmm.
news is always free for everybody. But it does unlock a lot of cool experiences when you do create that free account.
And it's a free account. They don't have to pay anything.
That's right.
So we've had some questions in the chat, but before we get to those, because they're kind of related to what we're talking about, let's talk about the paid. Oh, and I want to mention to you guys watching, There are links to the website in the description of this video. There's also a link to the Facebook post for what we're going to talk about now, the paid training that will get you information on how to get signed up. So what's the paid training? Is that tying into the collaborator aspect of your guys' website?
Yeah, and so it's really a beautiful story because we launched VNN over 5 years ago, and it really was with citizens in mind. So
Mm-hmm.
that citizens could, if they wanted to have a social experience, and Facebook, Twitter, a lot of places are flooded with information, misinformation, and disinformation, which is
Yeah,
intentionally misleading
absolutely.
content. And so that was really important to us when we were designing like how this would look. And it was focused on citizens so they could have an active role, but citizens really didn't jump on it. Journalists did. Affiliates wanted to partner with us. But we are like, oh, well, maybe citizens just don't want to be held to that same journalistic standard. They just want to post whatever they want. But over the years, we did have a lot of people that approached me and said like, "Oh, I would love to be a journalist. I would love to learn more about how that works, and I would love to contribute content to your network because it really does give a cool platform for people to upload content and then share like via email or to other, social media platforms." And so finally I started asking the questions like, "Well, what's holding you back?" And it was really a lack of education, a lack of understanding about how the news process works, a lack of understanding of how to produce good journalism, and really not a lot of understanding about the editing process. So a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people didn't maybe have the confidence. And that's kind of how I felt when I got out of journalism school and I got hired at the television station, and I was like, "You're just going to let me post whatever I like, write whatever I want and say
Wow.
whatever I want on air?" And they were like, "No, of course not. Like you're going to be edited a bunch of times before you actually get to that point." And so that's not necessarily a requirement for any of our collaborators, but it is an option. If you're like, "Hey, I want to publish this story. Do you have any feedback?" Like we have editors that will work with our community members to get them to that print ready, or just feel more confident about what they're putting out there. So that's
Mm-hmm.
also part of just like the education that we're planning to do next year.
So how is this going to work? They apply. Where would they go to apply? Can they contact you guys through Facebook? Is there a specific link or email?
Oh, yes, and this whole program is made possible, thanks to Oklahoma Media Center, which is a statewide collaborative. They did this really cool ecosystem engagement surveying, which talked to community members, especially in underserved areas, and asked them a lot of questions. And one thing that they found out that we had already known is that there needs to be more of a boots on the ground
Mm.
way of getting our community members to be part of the news process. And we've actually been pushing for funding for this citizen journalism project for over a year now. And
Wow.
so this ended up being a perfect fit, of being able to get this grant to be able to fund this program. And so there is a Google form where people just answer some questions. It is tailored, the curriculum is tailored, this program is tailored for underserved communities across Oklahoma, but specifically in Tulsa area because you will have to travel to Tulsa for the in-person classes.
Right.
Um, but it's really not that hard to be an underserved community member in the news ecosystem. And so there's a lot of uh, qualifications that we have to fit into that category as far as how we define it. And so
Mm-hmm.
basically, people just have to fill out this quick form online. It is on our website, on our social media, and we can share that wherever else it needs to be shared. We're pushing it everywhere. But basically, that just needs to be filled out by the 5th, and then we'll notify applicants thereafter that were selected, and then the classes will actually start at the end of January and run through the beginning of March. There will be 6 in-person classes, and so for 6 weeks, it'll be one class per week during that time.
Okay. And so they get their application in, they get notified, they take the classes. Do they get paid at the end, or is it like each class you get an amount? Like, how does that work?
And so we'll probably do it. Um, that there's some logistics, I'm not gonna
All
lie, that
right.
have not been worked out yet, and we're kind of going back and forth as far as like, will we pay everybody weekly or bi-weekly? I do think that I am leaning more towards, and speaking with others, doing it every week, like,
Mm-hmm.
because if people are taking the time every week, I definitely don't want to maybe hold all the funding. We're certainly not going to pay it all up front, but I think that that probably will be how it works out every week. It is $25 an hour, and that's for 2 hours a week in-person learning hours and
Mm-hmm.
one solo on your own hours outside of the class. So it's technically 3 hours of commitment a week during
Right.
that time. And then after, they will be paid an additional $150 to publish a story on our network as a citizen journalist.
Oh, wow. Awesome. So that this program will get you all the way published, right?
Yes, yep, on our
Groovy.
platform.
Well,
Hmm.
I think we've covered all the bases there. I'm going to dive into these chat questions because they're starting to pile up. They're
Okay.
all so far from TY Prol. The first one is, have you thought about reaching out to the radio program African and Indian Table Talk on KBOB 89.9, hosted by Muskogee citizen Eli Grayson every Tuesday to promote this? This is a bit of a plug and also a question.
Cool. In fact, I've heard of Eli Grayson. I'm not uh, uh, familiar with that broadcast, but we surely are interested in plugging it wherever we can and talking
Awesome,
about it,
awesome. Well,
reaching as
TY
many
Prol,
people.
if you have contact information for that program or Eli, email it to me and I'll pass it on and we'll see if we can get that done. The next one is, would you consider making an appearance to give a presentation to local community groups or governmental boards, like at a Tulsa Creek Indian Community Meeting or Greater Tulsa Indian Affairs Commission? And just for you, TY Parole, on that particular question, to set this story up, I ran into Brittany at the Tulsa Indian Community's Christmas carnival thing they had most recently. But go ahead and would you consider making any appearances like that?
Yeah, totally. We are interested in getting this word out to as many people as possible. We were at the Tulsa Creek Indian Community Center because that is where my husband is. That's his community center that
Mm-hmm.
he's a member of. So they were gracious enough to let us, have some fun media games for kids and tell people about our program. But we certainly are, and we've also presented there in the past as far as our news coverage. But we would love to go into as many locations and places and speak with as many people as possible about this program and really a lot of other programming and cool things that we have going on at our network.
Awesome. So the next question is, and he also mentions here the Greater Tulsa Area Cherokees. I don't know that group, but if you have contact information for them, go ahead and email it to me and I'll pass it on to Brittany. Uh, let's see. Is this something non-Indigenous citizen journalists can be an eligible collaborator? I guess he's asking, is this just Indigenous journalists, citizens, or any citizens?
So we do a lot, being that Kelly is Creek and Cherokee and has a lot of concern for uplifting Indigenous perspective and coverage and really true and valid perspectives into the news ecosystem. We do have a lot of Indigenous focus. I myself am not Indigenous. I'm about 98% Irish American. Um, but just being here, I have become, quite an ally. I feel like I had a lot of coverage when I was in KXII. I was
Mm-hmm.
on the Chickasaw Reservation when I was up in Ada, and then when I was down in KXII, I was in Durant covering and on the Choctaw Reservation. And so I think that you certainly don't have to be Creek, you don't have to be Cherokee. Indigenous people are very encouraged to apply just because of how much those perspectives have been oppressed the
Mm-hmm.
last many hundreds of years. But it's certainly not a requirement. We encourage all BIPOC community members to apply. We encourage women to apply if you've been justice involved. If there's a lot of, and you can, on that application form, it'll actually ask you, um, are you a member of an underrepresented community? It will list several examples of what that means to us. But there's also an option too to say other, and
Mm-hmm.
that maybe there's another underrepresented community that's not on our radar.
Right.
And so we're really it's a wide net of underserved voices that we're trying to capture here.
All right. The next question here is, would you please consider working in partnership with the Center for Public Secrets as collaborators too? I'm not familiar with them, but if you have a link, TY Pro, go ahead and email it to me. Are you familiar with the Center for Public Secrets?
I have. I've actually spoken a lot with someone in the past, really when we were doing our Stealing Tulsa series and
Mm.
talking a lot about that and looking for republishers and looking for events and community organizations to partner with. And so, if you're unfamiliar, our Stealing Tulsa series is about allotment history and the untold history, specifically relating to Tulsa, regarding allotments and indigenous history. Um, but we are certainly always open to working with them. We believe a lot in the work that they do, and we've attended events there in the past. So, yeah, definitely the door is always open there for collaboration.
Alrighty, let me move on to the next question we got here. Are any of these Gonzo Okie-centric authors current collaborators? So Russell Cobb, Fraser Katzner, G.W. Schulz, Nick Alexandrov, and Michael Mason. Do you know if those guys are signed up on VNN?
I don't know if they're signed up on VNN. I know I've worked with Russell Cobb in the past. He is also affiliated with the Lucinda Hickory Research
Mm-hmm.
Institute, which is another partner of ours. And certainly, we, again, going back to our allotment coverage and Oklahoma history and in Tulsa history, we're collaborating on a few grants in the future to get more of that programming rolled out. But as far as being expert collaborators or actual contributors to our platform, they are not that I know of. But that's a great idea because they sound like they're people that should be.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see here. What's the next question? Have you approached Susie Hinton to see if she might want to collaborate?
I don't know who that is.
Okay.
It
Well,
sounds
TY Pearl,
familiar.
if you have an email or contact info for her, pass it on to me and I'll pass it on to Brittany. And then he's asking the same question for Larry Clark. I'm
Larry
not
Clark.
familiar with Larry Clark either, but.
Mm-mm.
And then he asked the
I'm
same
taking
question
notes.
for Joe Ando.
Ando. That also sounds familiar, but
Well, and is it a situation where you guys are personally approving all of the collaborators, or is it something where people sign up and they have to go through a long review process? It's possible that some of these guys could be in a review process.
no, that so there is a review process. There's certain levels of verification for each of the collaborator category types. Journalists are held to the highest, I imagine, and then citizens are you really just have to agree to the terms and conditions. As far as like experts, which a lot of them sound like, you need at least 10 years experience in your field, which that sounds like. And when that happens, and we have expert uh, uh, signups, if you will, we will take the time and do our research as journalists. We have a team of expert researchers that will do some digging and find out, does this person actually have 10 years experience,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of digging around those paper trails. Sometimes we'll ask, if it's unable to find it, if they could provide further explanation or
Right.
some documentation. And certainly when we're doing officials, that we, will work side by side with them, typically in person, to get their accounts signed up. But as far as I know, I am notified whenever there's pending expert verification. And I haven't had any of that come across, but we are also always still developing our app and constantly looking for hiccups and glitches. And so, if that is a case anywhere, really anyone just has to message us on Facebook or send me an email. I'm pretty easy to get a hold of, and pretty responsive so that we can kind of tackle those situations as they come up.
All right. We've had a couple of funding questions here, and I'm just going to kind of roll them together there, TY Pro. Are you primarily grant funded? And then he also asked if there are any tribal appropriations or, I guess, tribal support for you guys as a news agency.
So we have been really scrappy. When Kelly and I launched VNN, it was with about $1,500 and our own credit. And so that we've had to think really outside of the box. We are expanding like our advertising revenue, but primarily we do get a good percentage from grants. We also have VNN Media Services, which is an offshoot of Verified News Network, and that's our paid media services. So that's like content creation, social media management, event planning. We're not funded per se, like general operating from any tribe. But we do have some really supportive media clients. And so the American Indian Chamber of Commerce of Oklahoma is one of our bigger multimedia clients. So we handle their web development, their support,
Mm.
event planning, pretty much anything multimedia related. A few months ago, we partnered with Osage News for news consultation and sustainability training and resources. We also help with their events. So they have some really cool events coming up too. Shameless plug for them. They have Killers of the Flower Moon. They're having a Golden Globes watch party in January. Uh, Killers of the Flower Moon bus tour in February. And so we basically have taken everything that we've learned about how to be a sustainable news media company over the last 5 years and are using that to help other organizations improve their sustainability and their community engagement. So I hope that answered your question. We have
I think you.
probably 7 or 8 revenue streams
Right. I think you
that we
answered
got
the
going
question.
on.
You guys have done some grants, but you also have a lot of other balls in the air.
Hmm.
So, okay. So T.Y. Pearl's saying Susie Hinton is S.E. Hinton, the author of The Outsiders. And then he says Joe
Oh,
Ando is a painter and author from Tulsa. Larry Clark produced the photography book Tulsa and directed the movie Kids. Oh, okay. I know. Is Larry
okay.
Clark based out of Tulsa? I didn't know that. That's amazing. T.Y. Pearl also asks, have you approached the Muskogee Arts Commission about supporting your projects?
I have not. No.
Okay, that was an easy one. T.Y. Pearl asks, have you approached Sterling Harjo about becoming a collaborator? He used to do work like this with the late, great Leroy Chapman. Shout out to Dodge Lodge Duo.
I have. I have reached out to him on Facebook and via email. I don't have like a person to person relationship,
Mm-hmm.
but anyone wants to establish that for us, that would be awesome because we do have a huge amount of respect for all the work that he's doing in Indian country.
Absolutely. Well, we've covered all the questions. That was a long haul. So we talked about the process to apply for the paid training, and that at the end of it, they can get published. Um, for collaborators that sign up with VNN, do you and I'm going to talk a little bit kind of like about what we would consider to be freelance journalists or professional people. You know, you've checked them out; they're okay. Do you guys have like a standard rate for pieces that are published, or how does that work?
And so it's been really interesting because it's only been in the last couple of years that we've really even been able to like pay for original reporting.
Mm-hmm.
This has been more of like a free service for people, and so we've worked and mentored journalists. Say that are have graduated college and have not been able to get a foot in the door at a television station,
Mm-hmm.
or that they've been let go or not, had their contracts not renewed at a television station, but they want to work somewhere as they're applying to other places. We've had people start with us, get into TV, say this isn't for me, and then come back to us. And then we've also just been again that in between for people, that keeping their reels fresh and being tell just a way for them to tell stories in their area. But we do, if when we are hiring for partner journalists that will be on our team, the rate is $35 an hour. And that's just a flat rate that we pay everybody. Um, and honestly, and if anyone has a lot of media experience and is looking to even take that higher, in January, we're going to be rolling out a multimedia manager position that's 20 hours a week to be doing a mix of things that we do here at VNN. But it really depends on, since we are still working on getting like really established general operating funding.
Mm-hmm.
It's really grant based, and so we have basically our partner journalists that we will partner with. They're able to write whatever is on their heart to write, or that they're talking with their communities, and we help them establish. But we it's really on a level of news entrepreneurship as well. Like
Mm-hmm.
we'll walk with you, we'll help you apply for your own grants, we'll help you establish in your area, find local ad. We have all of the like media assets that people are free to use. We have sales and advertising, sponsorship, training, and assets for people. But we're technically not a startup anymore. We're now like an established small business in our area and in other states. But we still do have a lot of that entrepreneurship feel. Whereas this can be very lucrative for people who have that entrepreneurial spirit and who
Mm-hmm.
want to use everything that we've built for them, and to do really basically what they're passionate about. Um, but at this time, when we do have open positions for journalists, additional journalists, that a lot of the time it's for depending on uh, the surplus of project-based funding that we get. If that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. Um, TY Pearl's got a couple of questions here. TY, there's a link to their website in the description here and their Facebook. So I think you can run down all of that, the applications and stuff. The deadline, as we mentioned earlier, is January 5th. So you need to get your application in by January 5th. And then TY's asking, do you guys take donations? Is there somewhere where people can donate directly to your organization?
Yeah, there's a few different ways. And so our website is verifiednews.network. If you go there in that menu, there is a tab to donate. And we have a couple of different, you can donate specifically to our Stealing Tulsa. Um, you can donate to Indigenous Perspective. We also, it's not on here quite yet, on the donate page, but if you go under our news and events, you're going to find our Exploring Indigenous Allyship event. And that's a new type of programming that we just rolled out earlier this year. It was super successful, but through working with Lion, local independent online news publishers, which is a nationwide collaborative that helps people do what we're doing and kind of uplifting underserved communities and filling in news gaps. At the bottom, you'll see we have a new Native District program. And
Mm-hmm.
so we've identified 3 districts within VNN and programming and our community needs, that is designated opportunities for people to become essentially district benefactors. Our Native one is the first one that we rolled out. And it tells you a lot about not just like the citizen journalism program, and our events that are focused on Indigenous communities, and our series that are focused on Indigenous communities. But it also has different ways of contributing, different levels. And that's an annual donor program for people who want to, or companies who want to take that to the next level. And so there's a bunch of different ways, I hope, that are obvious if people are wanting to help us out and fund more of this kinds of coverage and programming in the community.
Awesome. There's been 3 questions pop up here, and we're at 28 minutes. We're right at about 30 minutes where we would wrap, guys. So I'm going to do these 3 questions, and then that's it. We're going to sign out. The first one is, are there different beats that are areas of focus? I'm assuming what TY is asking here is like if you submit something, are you going to submit something in a beat, or how does that work?
No, it's really just so, and I say no. We don't have beats per se, but another cool kind of perk of our network is when you submit a story, you have ways of filing it under different categories, and a lot of the stories are multiple categories. So even if you click on our our story about the citizen journalism project, you'll see that it's filed under education, technology, and community.
I
And
see.
so there's a way that you could file it under specific beats. And when you sign up for a free account and you're logged in, you can actually set specific feeds. So like when you're not logged in, you just see the latest news
Mm-hmm.
feed, and that's pretty much everything. But if you have one thing that you can file it as education, for example, if you're just wanting to do education stories, and our collaborators that have accounts can actually log in and set different feeds. And so you can have the latest news feed, which never changes, but say you wanted an education feed, if
Right.
you wanted a technology feed, then you'd be able to see all of the stories in that beat or category. So that's kind of one way, but we don't assign beats. We don't tell people what they need to be covering. It is really an independent kind of journey that people are on.
Okay, that sounds awesome. Let's see here. Are bad press style documentaries something on the menu for this media program?
Oh, man, I would love that. I would love that. I am like a video storyteller at heart. I love a lot of my back when I was in television news, I was so limited to like a minute 30 or less news
Right.
package
Yeah,
video.
yeah.
And I've really like spread my wings to like 3 to 5 minute videos. But I love editing video. I love video storytelling. And I don't know how much capacity I myself would have to, take on such an initiative. But I am working right now, even like in 2 days, I have a meeting with local filmmakers about ways that we could potentially collaborate in 2024. And so that is definitely on my radar, definitely something that I would love to do one day. But just the logistics of it are very fuzzy.
Okay. Let's see here. And I'm going to just bundle these two questions together, T.Y. Pearl. Are you familiar with the Dance of the Two Moons Gala fundraiser?
I am not.
Okay. And I'm going to go on to the next part. Will you be at Native American Day next year?
We've been there every year, last 2 years, so we would love to.
All right. Awesome. Well, that's it. We're at 31 minutes. And is there anything that we haven't discussed about this project or VNN that you think is important we need to get in, Brittany?
We discussed so much. I think that you did a great job, and these were really great questions. We're just so thankful for the opportunity to talk, and we really are just so wanting to be plugged into our community's needs. And so, any recommendations, any places that you think that we should be, we just love working with all of our community members to get the word out about not just what we're doing, but how we can empower people to lift up their voices and help their voices be heard. And so we're just really grateful for this opportunity, and any partnerships that will come to fruition, we will definitely welcome them.
Awesome. Well, I want to tell you from me, it's great work that you guys are doing. And it's just like we've mentioned several times, it is an underserved area of the news ecosystem. And it's something that we need to pump up if we're going to have an accurate view of what's happening in the community for sure.
Definitely. Thank you for your affiliation as well with us.
Sure, absolutely. And guys, just to give you a heads up, Gary's show is going to come at 10 o'clock tomorrow, just like normal, but it's pre-recorded. It's not going to be live because I'm going on vacation and I'm not going to be back till January. So there's not going to be a lot of stuff published between now and I'm taking a bit of a break. You guys keep sending me emails with leads and everything, and we'll keep chasing them down. If you didn't catch the Lawyered Up, most recent Lawyered Up about Hooper, and you're watching this and you're like, when are you guys going to have Travis Scott on? We're going to have him on, but we're going to let the holidays go by so everybody can take care of everything. And then we don't have, because that could be a heavy live stream. But we're going to try to do that in January for sure. And Brittany, I once again, thank you. And you guys, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you later. Mado Hadam, Chihichat Lees.